intention to give coaches with all types of experiences a platform to share their knowledge. Just want to start with my goal in beginning this webcast was to bring on individuals who I believe are truly adding value and will continue to add value to the coaching community and the basketball community. Today, we dive into junior college coaching. We got Coach John Ritzdorf, head men's basketball coach of Columbus Community College on. We're going to talk about recruiting, evaluation, player development, and what it's like building a program as a young head coach at the junior college level. Coach Ritzdorf just finished up his first year, led his team to 20-11, and he's looking to build on that in year two. Coach Ritzdorf, thanks for coming on. How we doing?
Doing good, man. Appreciate you doing this and for having me on. I think it's a really good way to spend our time right now as we're all living a life we didn't anticipate. So appreciate you doing this.
Absolutely. I first just want to start with your journey. Just kind of share with us, where you started, where you've been, and where you're at now.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Nebraska. I grew up in a small town about 50 minutes west of Lincoln, York, Nebraska. And I was pretty average, below average athlete. I knew I wasn't going to play in college, but I knew I wanted to coach. And I went to University of Nebraska, Omaha, partly because I had some academic scholarships there, but mostly because I knew there'd be more high schools or youth organizations for me to get my foot in the door as far as coaching goes. So I graduated from UNO, and I had some really good experiences there. I was a volunteer assistant at Ralston High School for 3 years under Bill Hurd. I learned a ton from him. And I also got involved in the AAU world a little bit. I coached at Omaha Sports Academy. I worked for Bob Franzese. I helped run their leagues and their camps, and I just got to learn a lot from the business side of things, working at OSA. And so I didn't play in college, but I started coaching when I was 18. So when I started getting further along in the career, I had been coaching already for 4 or 5 years. So I think that really worked to my advantage. About halfway through college, I thought I was going to be a high school coach, and I was totally fine with that. And I still would be fine with that. I'd be excited about that. But about halfway through college, my horizons expanded a little bit, and I wanted to try to get into college coaching. So I made it a goal to be a graduate assistant. So my last year of college, I sent out about probably 100 letters, like actual in the mail letters with my resume and, letter of interest and all that kind of stuff. And I emailed those as well, but it was mostly the Division IIs and NAIAs around Nebraska. And I heard back from maybe 6. I sent out about 100 and I heard back from 5 or 6, and 4 of them were no. 1 was maybe, and 1 was, hey, let's talk. And fortunately, that turned into my first college job. I was a graduate assistant at Northern State University under Paul Sather. He's now the head coach at University of North Dakota. Unbelievable experience, unbelievable. And I got my master's up at Northern, but I got a doctorate in learning how to run a program. And I tell people that all the time, just because I worked for such a good coach up there and such a good program. There's not a lot up in Aberdeen, South Dakota, so Northern State University basketball is definitely the thing that people care about the most. So I spent 1 year there, and I was not looking to leave. I still had another year in my master's program, and but the director of operations job at University of Nebraska Omaha opened up, and I had known Coach Hansen previously from being a student there, and he knew Coach Sather, and I didn't want to leave Northern. I honestly almost said no to the job, which sounds crazy to say no to a full-time Division I job when you're 23, 24 years old. But I love Northern so much that I almost stayed just for the experience. But I think I came to my senses, and I took the job at UNO. I spent 2 years there for Coach Hansen and absolutely loved it. Learned how to run a program from not really the basketball side of things, because Dobo job is you're off the floor and you're not really recruiting. But I learned how the financial side, the academic side, like everything else that goes into running a program at the Division I level. And that experience was really invaluable. But I knew I wanted to coach, and that's why I got into the business in the first place. So after 2 years there, I was looking for assistant jobs, and I was fortunate enough to work at UNK, Nebraska Kearney, Division II program in the MIAA. I had known Coach Lofton or gotten to know him a little bit through my time at UNO, and I'm appreciative that he took a chance on me, because I only had 1 year of actual coaching experience as a GA, and he hired me as his full-time assistant at Kearney, and I spent 3 years there, and I loved it, man. there was a lot of family connections to that place. My dad had played there back in the 70s, and I grew up going to games and camps there. And it was kind of surreal that I was working there full time and trying to help that program kind of get back to where it had been. So I loved my time there. I was named recruiting coordinator and assistant coach. And then after a couple of years, I was ready to be a head coach. And I don't know if you're actually ever ready. I found out this year that you're not actually ever ready, but I will say that I needed to make that move, and I was ready to run my own program and give it a shot. So I was really fortunate that this job came open at Central Community College, and it's an hour from where I grew up. It's within 2 hours of most of my family and friends. And I got hired here last May and just finished up my first year.
You've had a path that is, you've crossed paths with a lot of great head coaches, and it sounds like you've learned from a lot of great head coaches. Now that you are a head coach, a young head coach, just finished up your first year, talk about when you took over that program. What were some of the first steps that you took to start building that program to your vision, and just making sure that you're ensuring that growth and development?
For sure. So I guess with my level, at the college level, the first thing I wanted to do was just make everyone comfortable, all the returning players and players who had signed. And I wanted to assure them I wasn't going to cut them, that they didn't sign up to play for me. And there's a coaching change in late May, early June, and that kind of rocked their world a little bit, I'm sure, to an extent. So the first thing I wanted to do was just reach out to all the returning guys and the guys who had already signed, and let them know I was excited to be their coach, and whether I recruited them or not, I was going to treat them the same. So I did that, and I let them know I was still going to recruit. I mean, you're not going to necessarily be the only point guard that will sign, or whatever it may be, but I wanted them to feel comfortable with me. And then I also wanted to give them a chance to, if they didn't want to stay, they didn't have to. And I wasn't in the business of twisting anybody's arm to stay. Because like I said, they didn't sign up to play for John Ritzdorf. They signed up to play for another coach and under other circumstances. So I didn't want them to feel like they had no say in the matter. So after I reached out to everybody and I established, like, hey, I want to be the head coach here and I want to coach you. And they said, hey, I want to be here. Then we kind of moved forward with establishing our program and our expectations and our culture. So once that happened, we started with, first team meeting. That's the first time I met a lot of those guys. And I dove right into, especially as a new coach, everyone says you got to establish your culture, and culture gets thrown around a lot. But I really wanted to get off on a strong foot. So the first team meeting, we talked about the motto for our team was do the next right thing right. And that was something that I learned from Coach Sather, and that's an old Don Meyer saying. And I wanted that to kind of that's part of my coaching philosophy, and I wanted that to really resonate with our guys throughout the year, that no matter what walk of life, I don't expect perfection. I never expect perfection. I'm not perfect, and I make mistakes every day. But are you going to compound a mistake that you make into another one? Or are you going to do the next right thing as best as you possibly can? So that was a big part of our culture this year. And from there, we have five pillars in our program, and I'll just briefly go through those real quick. But they were discipline, and with each pillar, I have a quote or two that kind of, in my best, summarizes it, in my opinion. And I'm not smart enough to come up with these myself, but I'm a big quote guy, just to help drive points home. But for discipline, it was live above your feelings. I mean, there's going to be a lot of times where you don't feel like going to class, or feel like going to a workout, or feel like playing as hard as you possibly can. But if you're truly disciplined, you live above those feelings and do what you need to do. So that was something that we talked about early and often. We talked about gratitude a lot. The fact that you're a college athlete, the quote with that is, what you take for granted or maybe complain about, somebody else is praying for that opportunity. So to be really grateful for where you're at. The third pillar was passion, and nothing great was ever accomplished without enthusiasm. And basketball is fun, and it's a gift, and we need to act like that every single day. You're not going to a job that you hate. You're not going to a really negative situation every day. You're going to basketball to play with your guys, and you're getting in the gym. So let's act like it and be grateful and be passionate about it. The fourth pillar was truth. this is one of my favorite quotes. It was, a lot of us would rather be ruined by praise than saved by criticism. And I think telling the truth, both from player to coach, coach to player, player to player, that's a huge part of our program. Sometimes what you want to hear isn't what you need to hear. And that was established from the get-go, that I'm not going to sugarcoat things, and I don't expect you to do the same. And I think through open and honest communication, you can really get things done a lot quicker in establishing your culture. And then the last one was service. You can judge the character of a man by how he treats those that can do nothing for him. And we did a lot of community service with our team. And it's not just that, it's how you treat people on a daily basis. So between, do the next right thing right and those 5 pillars, that's what I really tried to establish right away. I would say the 2 that are the most important as far as when you first start out, at least that I found out, and I believe, is discipline and truth. And with discipline, a lot of it was simple stuff like, hey, 6:30 a.m. workout means we're going at 6:30. You're not walking in the door at 6:31. Like 6:30 means 6:30. Yelling someone's name on every pass and communicating means yelling someone's name on every pass, and then following through with the punishment for it if it doesn't get done. Or 3 o'clock study hall means 3 o'clock, not 3:02. So just really, really basic things, but establishing that discipline in those guys right away was really important. And then with truth, for me, it was easy too, because at the junior college level, they're trying to get recruited. And I could always tell them, when a 4-year coach asks me about you, I'm going to tell them the truth. So what do you want that truth to be? Do you want the truth to be that you're a good teammate and you work hard and you're always on time, or do you want it to be something else? So out of all those things, I would say discipline and truth were really huge with how we started our program. And I didn't do it right all the time. I didn't do it perfect all the time. But I think when we did those things and we really emphasized those things, it took care of a lot down the road.
There's a lot of really good stuff in there. I like some of those quotes. I was writing one of them down. One of the things that I think is really important as a coach and as a player is, that being able to do that next thing right. And that next play mentality is something that I always have preached as a player and as a coach, as I think it's so important. Basketball moves so fast that there's always going to be mistakes. But the best players seem to be the ones that can move on from those mistakes. And like you said, not compound 1 and make it 2. With that quote of do the next right thing right. I assume in year 1 you made mistakes as a young head coach, and there were challenges. How did you personally live that quote and overcome some of those obstacles that you faced in year 1?
Yeah, man, I made mistakes every day in interactions with the guys, with decisions I made in games, with how I planned practice. It was every single day I made mistakes. And I think what I tried to do and what I still try to do, and I'm going to try to do the rest of my career, is admit it. I think you need to own up to your mistakes, and you can't be afraid to step in front of your team and say, I screwed up. Hey, I'm sorry I put you in that position, or I'm sorry I said that to you yesterday, or I'm sorry that, hey, I wasn't prepared. Or I think that if you can be vulnerable like that in front of your guys and not act like you're always doing things right, because I'm not always doing things right. I make mistakes just like you guys. And if I'm 45 years old and still blessed to coach college basketball, I'm going to make mistakes then. But I don't ever want to lose that side of, if I'm going to expect them to own up to their mistakes and hopefully try to make up for it, I need to do the same and let them know when I screw up, and let them know that I'm going to do my best to never let it happen again. And I can't promise it'll never happen again. None of us can promise or predict the future, but I'm going to do everything in my power to not make that mistake again, and just being vulnerable with your guys.